Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're tuning in on the old World Wide Web. I'm Chris Grimes and this is Rachel Shelmerdine, and we're here to do a very special founder story of the Good Listening To show to help Rachel amplify all things alchemy inside. We have many connections. We both love Laurel and Hardy, which is one of the things we most quickly connected about, but also you were on Julia Duthie's podcast, People Are Everything, recently. Yep. And Rachel Shelmerdine, welcome to the show, and thank you for bearing with me.
Thank you.
As we had
No, that's fine.
Technological glitches to get us to this point. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hurrah. So yes, you mentioned in our conversations building up to today that you felt a bit sort of hidden before in the fact you've just been weaving your magic, grooving your magic. And this is an opportunity now for you to sort of go back onto full display of what it is, you know, who you are, what you do, and what you're here to achieve. So what's the thing you're most interested in helping to amplify today? And then we'll get on the open road of doing that.
I think just being known again in my industry. I was very well known when I first started out. I actually was one of the first experts on the Design Business Association Experts Register many years ago, so over 20 years ago. And that amplified me straight away. And I became very well known because I was the only coach who specialized in the design sector. And I was very lucky. I worked with big names straight away. My two biggest clients from the very beginning were Landor, who are one of the biggest branding agencies in the world, and Gensler, who are the biggest design firm in the world, architecture and interiors. And, you know, everything was just so easy. So from that, I never really had to publicize myself. I just did my work, which I love. And then after having my son, when he was 5, I was in a situation where I needed to homeschool him because his school got taken over and I couldn't get him into another school. So on the hoof, whilst running my business, I began homeschooling him. And that began a totally different part of my life, quite a different odyssey. We traveled a lot. We lived in Italy. We did homeschooling in olive groves.
Ooh,
so
wow.
It was a very interesting time. And then I have really, my attention has been focused on doing my work, coaching my clients and homeschooling my son and getting him to a point where he can take his exams and get ready to go out in the world because he turns 16 soon. And I would just like to reach out and just get a bit more attention perhaps for the work that I do and just build my reputation back again with new clients, because I have a huge hit rate of clients who come back to me. Pretty much every client I've worked with will come back to me, but new people don't know me at all because I'm just not out there.
And can I commend you for the word odyssey as well? And
getting that in early
in olive groves. This is a show that's all about storytelling. So I just love this. This is going to be absolutely wonderful. And it's all about alchemy inside and about the power within. So if people don't have a frame of reference hitherto about you, what is it about alchemy inside that brings you to how you like to do leadership coaching?
Yeah, so my first company that I set up in 2000 was called To Be You, because I very much wanted to be very different from, in those days, the only kind of coaching that really made a mark in the business world was American style. It really hadn't taken hold like it has now in the UK. And there were quite a lot of personality coaches, and it was very much about them. You know, and I did some training with some, they're amazing, you know, big American star coaches, but it was very much about them. And I wanted my work to be about the person I was working with. So I called it To Be You, because the work that I do, I wanted it to be not my philosophy of life, but to help them bring out what they wanted, what they needed. And then when I set up my second company, which is Alchemy Inside, and it's a few years old now, again, I'm just fascinated by what lives inside every single person. And I believe that everybody has the potential to be exactly what they want to be happy, to be successful. on their terms. That doesn't mean they all have to be rich, doesn't mean they all have to be well known or famous. They don't have to build something massive, but to make an impact on the world in their way. And so Alchemy Inside is very much reflecting that there is magic and you can transform yourself. And really, I'm a guide and I'm a help to help someone do that. Because true alchemy, the real alchemy, is turning yourself from what they call, base metal, really is just sort of your baser self where you're unknown,
Yes.
you're just in survival mode, to the highest level where you are very much aware of who you are, you're connected, and you have real agency in the world. That's my passion, my absolute passion.
And now I know your son is called Max, and you said it's Maxim, borrowed from a book, Maxim de Winter.
Yes, because I love Rebecca. I mean, I love all her work. Daphne du Maurier to me is a very, very underrated writer. I mean, extraordinary writer. People kind of, if they will only know some of her very famous books like Rebecca, and they think she just writes romantic fiction, but she doesn't. She writes some really strange. I mean, she wrote The Birds, which of course was that dark Hitchcock film. And I do love Rebecca because it's just a very interesting psychological. It's not a romantic drama, it's a psychological drama. So, and I love Maxim de Winter. He's one of my favorite male characters. So,
and also we must talk about our love of or shared love of Laurel and Hardy, Stan Laurel in particular.
Absolutely.
And I know that you and Max obviously dine out or watch very
Yes,
regularly.
I brought him up on Laurel and Hardy because I didn't let him watch TV, much to the disgust of my mummy friends in the preschool group that I belong to. So he wasn't allowed to see any TV until he was 3, because I wanted him to form his own feeling and connection with the world. I didn't want him to be spoon-fed the junk that friends' kids were watching, stuff like Peppa Pig and just junk, mindless stuff. And so for entertainment, we would watch YouTube videos or DVDs. So no TV, no adverts, none at all. And one of the early series of films I got him to watch when he was probably about 2 was Laurel and Hardy, because they're all on YouTube. And he loved them. From the moment, I mean, the very first one he ever saw was Busybodies.
Yes.
You know, when they're working in the sawmill, and it is just hysterical. I mean, we watch it still now and we still laugh as if it's the first time we saw it. And I remember watching him watch it, and he just, to watch a little kid laugh that much, it's just brilliant.
So we definitely share the soul chime of Stan Laurel in that. And I do remember that film very well indeed. There's a car that gets sawed in half that they're sitting in at the very end too.
The very end. Yeah.
So anyway, let's get on the open road of curating you through.
Okay.
If you've seen the show before, as in I know you have, but if you're watching and listening for the first time, this is the show in which I invite movers, makers, shakers, mavericks, influencers, and also personal heroes into a clearing or serious happy place of my guests' choosing as they all arrive to share with us their stories of distinction and genius. And Rachel Shelmerdine, beautiful name, by the way, we'll get into the derivation of that too, joins me for a special founder story episode today. So any questions about the structure before we go? And just to reassure you also, there'll be a very exciting bit at the end, which is called Show Us Your QR Code, please. Where we're going to be able to point listeners and those watching on the old World Wide Web as well to where we can find out all about Alchemy Inside.
Okay.
So it all takes place energetically in a clearing or serious happy place of my guests' choosing. So where is Rachel Shelmerdine's serious happy place or clearing? Where do you go to get clutter-free, inspirational and able to think?
Okay, so this was quite hard because I have one place that is my above all beloved place that I'm completely in love with. But there are lots of other, when you talked about energetically, there are lots of other places. But in the end, I did go with my number one place, and that is Venice. But specifically, it's the Lido di Venezia, which is the little island. It's a little strip, which has the Adriatic on one side and the Venice Lagoon on the other. It's tiny. It's a mile across, and I think it's 10 or 11 miles long. And it is just beautiful. And you can watch the most amazing sunsets when you sit and you look at the lagoon and you've got the skyline of St. Mark's Square. but then you can just turn around and, you know, in about 10 minutes, you're then looking at the turquoise of the Adriatic. And so it is just, I've never been anywhere like it. I've lived in Sicily, which is also a very, very beautiful island, much, much bigger, of course. And I was born on an island because I was born in Malta, which is a tiny little island, but very, very special. But the Lido in Venice, I've never been anywhere that makes me feel absolutely, completely without stress. There is, I mean, I'm a perfectionist, stress ball type of person. But I arrive in Venice and all stress just melts away. And I think it's the beauty. I think it is just the beauty of the place. So energetically, it's amazing for me. So I'm writing my first book. And when I go there, and my son and I go there a lot, I just write. You know, I carry a notebook with me and I take photographs all the time. And I'm just inspired by the beauty and the history of the place, because it's got such a rich, rich history. But the Lido is very real. Whereas if you go to St. Mark's Square, if you go to the famous bit of Venice, because Venice is lots of islands, it's an archipelago, but if you go to the famous bit, you know, the history there is literally coming out at you from every single brick. But it's kind of unreal. It's a surreal sort of place. It looks like a stage set. But the Lido is real. It's got schools, it's got sports grounds, it's got normal shops, and people actually genuinely live there. And, you know, we go up and down the island on a bus or we cycle. But when we go on the bus, you know, we get on the school bus and there's loads of kids coming out of school and it feels very real, but it's still got that just gobsmacking beauty. Just love it.
What a conjuring of a clearing that is. That is so beautiful. The Lido
Venezia.
Venezia. I love that. It's making me think of Cicero, and it's just conjuring all sorts of beautiful stuff. And going back to, you know, your homeschooling in the vineyard,
in the olive groves, of Siena. We moved to Siena, and I first homeschooled my son. I used to send photos to my best friend. She'd say, stop sending them to me, because we'd be in a swimming pool in an olive grove.
Yes.
And you could see, you know, Siena, the blue hills, very much like the blue hills in the background of the Mona Lisa. So, I mean, it was, you know, we'd be sitting there working our way through the school curriculum.
Saying Blue Hills, you've now made me think of the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia.
Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
on the trail of the lonesome
pine. Yeah.
Well, that's a great clearing. In all my circa 270 episodes, I've never had anyone name that gorgeous place as their clearing.
Lovely. I think everyone, if they can go, should go to Venice at least once in their lifetime, because there's nowhere on earth like it. It is extraordinary. And just, if you're an architect or a designer, which is the world that I work in, every single one of them should have gone there, because the ingenuity of the way it was built, the structure. I mean, when you go there, you might have read about it, that it's this, you know, sort of floating wonder. But when you go there and you actually see how huge and solid the buildings are, and they're resting on tree trunks. You know, they're resting on just, you know, wood that they've piled up, but in a very special, very ingenious way. It is an engineering wonder as well as a design wonder. It's just a magical place.
Well, what an epically wonderful, beautiful, perfect place to base the storytelling.
So yes, I'm on the Lido di Venezia. I'm halfway along the island. There's a place called Malamocco, which is literally halfway, and you are looking out across the lagoon on one side, and then you can just cut across and you've got the Adriatic. And my favorite place is sitting, watching the sunrise or the sunset on either side. And it is just, I've done it, you know, 100 times, and it never fails to inspire me, just give me joy for being alive, even in the crazy world we live in. It's just joy.
You have taken us on a veritable odyssey. I love that. And there we are. I'm now going to arrive with a tree in your clearing, and it's a bit deliberately Waiting for Godot-esque, a bit Samuel Beckett-y, a bit existential.
Yeah,
and I'm going to shake the tree, and here comes an Italian reference, because it's going to shake your tree to see which storytelling apples fall out. How'd you like these apples? And then what you're going to do is you've had 5 minutes to have thought about, you know, in the period that we've known we're going to be recording together, 4 things that have shaped you, Rachel Shelmerdine, 3 things that inspire you, Two things that never fail to grab your attention and borrow from the film Up. That's going to be, oh, squirrels, if you've seen the film, which I hope you have. And then the one is a quirky or unusual fact about you we couldn't possibly know about you until you tell us. It's not a memory test, so over to you now to interpret the shaking of the canopy of your tree. I'm just going to learn more drawings as well.
Lovely. Yeah.
Over to you.
Okay, so 4 things that have shaped me. So first of all, it has to be my parents. They were extremely individualistic, very unusual. They were older parents. My father was 52 when I was born. My mother was 40, just short of 41, 42. And they had been married for nearly 30 years. They'd met when my mum was 16. My dad was in the war. He was in the Navy. And they were such powerhouse people individually. He had run away. His family had left poverty in Ireland and swapped it for poverty in Liverpool. So he grew up on the back streets of Liverpool, and he ran away. And he managed to join the Royal Navy when he was underage, in the days when I suppose, you know, they obviously didn't get a guardian or a parental signature. They just took him. They probably thought he looked like a strapping lad, and yeah, okay, we'll take you. And, you know, he lived such an extraordinary life because he traveled the world. He went to war. He was trained as a diver, and he was trained to put mines on German U-boats.
Wow.
So, and then he became a diver after the war. And he then worked in salvage, and then he worked for oil companies. And so he saw so many amazing places, and places that were intact that are no longer intact. So all across the Middle East, very, very beautiful places. And he took my mum. So my mum and he met during the war, and she was an absolute rebel. She was the daughter of a Labour MP, an Irishman who had come and, you know, settled in the UK, become a Labour MP, and was a very long-standing Labour MP up in Penistone, near Sheffield. And
there's a McGee surname in your background as well.
McGee, that was her father, McGee. So Henry McGee, and his father, Richard McGee, also political, was actually an Irish activist. He was a fighter for home rule. He was a nationalist. Even though he was Protestant, he was actually a nationalist MP, but he fought for the right for the Irish to have their, you know, their own rule their own country. And he was a unionist and a real union activist, a real radical as well.
Yes.
And so brought his son up, who then became very political. And my mother went to Irish Catholic boarding school, which she hated. And this was just pre-war, and she actually got expelled. And I love it because she actually got expelled because she locked the head nun and the visiting bishop in the air raid shelter, and had thrown the key, refused to say where the key was. I mean, so she was kicked out. I don't know how
what they did to deserve being locked up. The bishop.
It was just very cruel. I mean, later, strangely enough, I then went to Irish Catholic boarding school, and it was very cruel. There's something in Irish Catholicism. There's a real hardcore, which is very different from, say, Italian Catholicism. Or I have Polish friends. Polish Catholicism is much softer, but Irish Catholicism is about suffering. There's something in the Irish temperament. You know, I'm predominantly Irish, a little bit of Greek. There's an element of suffering you've got to go through. So she hated it. She just hated it. She was very, very rebellious.
And I couldn't help hearing, obviously, that they had you quite late on. So was that
very late
in the as they call a happy surprise is what it's called? So
my mother was told she couldn't have children. Yes. She had lots of problems, health problems, and she was told she just couldn't have children.
Yes.
And so she had resigned herself to this. I mean, she'd been married a long, long time. She wanted loads of kids, and then suddenly I came along with a twin brother, but sadly my twin brother didn't make it. We were emergency cesarean, and I just survived. And she always called me her miracle baby, because really I shouldn't have survived. We were, you know, I was very premature. Like I say, sadly my twin brother didn't make it, but I did. And they didn't have much tech. I'm in Malta. You know, I'm in a little hospital in Malta, but they managed to keep me going.
Ask, did Did you name, was your twin brother named, or it was just a...
No. And in those days, they just took the baby away. You
Yes.
know, the mother wouldn't even been allowed to hold the baby like you know, you can now. And you know, there is a sort of process, a mourning process. No, they felt, you know, let's just take it away. So my mother and father, I mean, my mother didn't tell me this. You know, I found out in a really strange way many years later, and my mum didn't want to tell me because she said we never talked about it. It was, you know, it was something that was so devastating, but also they weren't allowed to process it because the baby would have been whisked away,
Yes.
taken away. But like I said, mum always called me her miracle baby. So, you know, I was kind of brought up in that
also a
kind of...
lovely through line of feistiness, as in your mum's feistiness. And of course, you know, my
Yes.
experience of you is that you're obviously feisty and clear in what you want and how to go.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's, like I say, the big influence is both my parents, but particularly my mom. So she was an absolute out and out rebel. So she was kicked out of school. She ran off with my father against the wishes of her family. And they, you know, they then traveled the world together. And she said when they first went abroad, they went to Bahrain, and it was a real expats kind of enclave, and all these very posh, older, posh English ladies came, you know, with hats and gloves, you know, and all that heat.
Yeah.
And they basically told my mum how she should be behaving, and they were telling her off because she wasn't wearing her hat and her gloves. And also she was mixing with the natives, which was very not the done thing. And my mum just told them to go away, and, you know, no uncertain terms, because she had no interest in being an expat. She just wanted to launch into whatever country they were living in. So she was, yeah, always a rebel, never followed the rules of society. And she brought me up very much to be that kind of person. And I mean, you know, when I was a teenager and I turned it on her, she didn't like it quite so much. And I used to say, well, you brought me up to be this,
And
to question everything.
And my assumption would be that because they were such older parents, they're no longer with us, I'm assuming.
No, my father died years ago, and
Yeah.
my mum died over 10 years ago.
Right, sure.
So, but yeah, I was very, very close to my mum. We had a tempestuous relationship when I was a teenager, but incredibly close when I was a child, and incredibly close once we got through the thorny period of me I basically was, talking of apples, I was like the apple that fell from the tree. I was very rebellious, and I also got kicked out of school as well, much to my mum's horror and disgust.
And of course, the question on everyone's lips, presumably the key was found and the head nun and the bishop were eventually
I
emancipated.
presume so. She didn't know. She didn't care. She hated her school so much.
They'll be discovered in 200 years'
I wasn't
time.
as naughty as her, but I also got kicked out.
The joke is they'll be discovered in 200 years' time and be heralded as being the hide and seek champions of the universe. Basically.
Absolutely, yeah, probably. And there'll probably be some story that they were having some illicit affair, and that's why they were in the air raid shelter together, rather than they'd been locked in by some very disgruntled, very naughty 15-year-old.
I commend your mother to the house. Wonderful. Okay,
So
second
so
shape now.
she really shaped me. She shaped me with her rebelliousness. She always stood up for what was right. So if she saw someone being bullied, or if she saw someone not well, someone in trouble, she would just step in.
Yes.
She had no qualms, and she brought me up to do the same, where she said, you must always do the right thing. And I used to say, well, what, even if it's a difficult situation, she'd say, your heart will always tell you if it's the right thing or not, and you must just do it. And she said, for no other reason other than it is the right thing. And that was so clear. And it used to embarrass me, because she would step in. If we were once in Selfridges at Christmas, and there was a man draped across the back stairs. You know, we went down the back stairs because the lifts were so busy. It was a few days before Christmas Eve, and people were stepping over him. And, my mum, checked him out. She was a nurse, and she went and tried to get someone off the shop floor, and people had no interest in helping. And she made such a fuss to make sure, and he'd had a heart attack.
Wow.
But people were just stepping over him. And I remember being embarrassed. At that time, I must have been about maybe 12.
Yeah.
And I was embarrassed. It's like, Mum, don't make a scene. But, my mum felt that to do the right thing, you must do whatever it takes. So
great
And I've
life
inherited that
philosophy.
now. I didn't
Yeah.
at the time because I was embarrassed because,
Yes.
you know, she would just step into situations and I go, oh no, not again, please no. But now, you know, I do the same thing myself, and I admire her, and she's been the biggest influence for how I behave when there might be a part of me saying, oh, just walk past, don't get involved. But there's that big draw to, if someone's
Yes.
in trouble, I just go over and say, are you okay?
Yes.
Do you need something?
Great first initial shapeage. Next thing that shaped you?
Yes, well then traveling. You know, I was born in Malta. I then grew up in Libya because my father worked in Libya, and we traveled all over the place. So I spent most of my young childhood on a plane and going to lots of different places. And I have continued that theme through my life,
Yes.
where I've done a lot of traveling. And I would say that has shaped me so much, to go and see different places and see different cultures. And really, the thing that is the strongest impression that I've taken away is that people are people, wherever they are,
Yeah.
in whatever situation. Most people I find are good, even though, you know, the media seems to want to portray that that's not true. But actually, the
Yeah.
majority of people I find are good.
Yeah.
They have good hearts, and most people want the same things. They want to look after their family, they want to work, they want to have a decent life.
Yeah.
And most people are searching for happiness, and to
Yes.
just, you know, that is what I've found wherever I've gone.
And in working as a coach, of course, that's the sort of the currency and the beauty of sort of people whispering. If you have a lens of kindness, because everybody's,
Yes,
you know, it's humanity that binds us all, obviously.
absolutely. And I remember being a teenager and watching, there was a BBC series called Tribe, which was with Bruce Parry, who was a quite a posh ex-army person, and he wanted to go and find and spend time with the last true nomadic tribes across the world. And that was the thing that he found. So even when he was with the most remote tribe, they all had humor, all of them. They would all, you know, they'd all take the mickey out of him and play jokes on him. And they all had kindness and love and, you know, respect, self-respect and respect for others. And it was wherever he went. And I have found that to be true in my travels and in my work as well.
Lovely. And shapeage number 3, please. I've got a bell to.
Yeah. So then with all this
please.
traveling around, so my father ran off and left my mum and me when I was about 6.
Wow.
You know, long, complicated story, but it meant that mum and I then were in a very precarious situation, because he took all the money with him and left mum with, basically, he left her with a maroon Triumph 2000, if you remember those cars from the
Yes.
70s, and very little else. And so she'd never worked. She'd done a lot of voluntary work, and she had been a corporate wife for many years, an amazing cook. And she was told she had to get out of the house we were in, because he'd stopped paying the mortgage. And she went and found herself a job as a housekeeper where she was allowed to have a child. And again, that shows such strength, because she didn't tell anyone. She didn't go to her friends or her family. She just thought, well, I've made my bed. I married this man and nobody wanted me to. So I'm gonna lie in that bed. And so she went and forged a life that had, so everything had fallen apart in her life, and then she rebuilt a new life. And we moved around a lot as a result, because she would get different jobs, and we moved up and down the UK. So ultimately I went to 11 different schools.
Wow.
And that
I may
has
say,
really shaped me.
your dad would have been sort of its day couched as being a cad, I suppose. If that's the
A little bit of a cad and a bounder, yes.
Yeah.
We found out much later that he had actually met someone, but he didn't tell my mum. He just disappeared.
Yes.
But I went to lots and lots of different schools and in lots of different parts of the country. And it was kind of, I joke about it now, but it would always be that I would have just learnt the accent of one place. We'd be up north and I've just started to pick that accent up and to fit in, where then mum would be like, right, we're moving. And we'd be in a totally different part of the country and a different accent. So I'd always be turning up as the new girl with a strange accent.
Yes.
And it was hard, but I don't know. I think it became almost like it was like an existential exercise of how quickly can I win people over.
Yes, it's accent convergence is a way of blending in. Also,
absolutely.
I know that it informs what you're like or what we're like as coaches if you can be someone that's traveled around a lot, because you've got this outside sort of outlier propensity.
Yes.
The outside looking in with super objective perspective.
Absolutely. And again, you ultimately find out that everyone's the same. They have, different accents, but you're right. Accent is a great way to assimilate and to bond with someone very quickly if you use their language and you use their sounds. And I did that just unconsciously. So I used to pick up all the different accents, and I suppose it was like being a mimic, really, in some ways. But I think it has helped me. I mean, I've got no set accent myself. My accent is very fluid. So, I've lived a lot in Ireland. I've lived in Dublin. So I pick up the Irish accent very, very quickly. But I do, if I'm with anyone, I will pick up their accent, and it's not, conscious. It's just an unconscious. And so my accent goes up and down and all over the place. Sometimes it's very posh. Sometimes it's a dialect of somewhere.
And a capacity for mimicry is a really good way to be able to belong.
Yes, absolutely. And you start to understand people. I mean, I'm fascinated by language. I'm not very good. I'm learning Italian at the moment, because even though I've lived in Italy, I haven't picked it up really properly. I can chit chat. So I'm now learning it properly. And I'm not a natural learner of language, but I'm fascinated by language, because when you speak a different language, I've found anyway, and I'm sure other people have experienced this, you become a slightly different version of yourself.
Yes.
There's a different expression and a different persona that then comes out. And so if you are doing that same thing with accents, again, a slightly different version of you comes out.
Yes.
And it's just very interesting. And I'm interested in all the different personalities that lie inside one person.
It's very relatable, because in terms of character acting, if you personify with a different accent, that gives you a whole different identity very quickly.
Yes, absolutely. And I can't act. I'm rubbish at anything like that at all. But I'm good at
probably
picking up accents.
If you've blended in all of your life, you're a very good protagonist and able to role play, which is the equivalent thing, really.
Yes, and like you say, it's very, very good for being a coach. I mean, it's almost like my life, everything has shaped it in order for me to be what I am now and to work with people, because there isn't a story or a type of person that surprises me. That I embrace everybody. Nobody can tell me a story that's so shocking that it pushes me away, because I just embrace every type of person, because I think I've met every type of person in all these different schools, all the different places I've traveled to. And I just think that's like this encyclopedic knowledge of people, which then just fuels my interest, because I am fascinated by people.
There's the currency of empathy within that as well, being a true empath as a coach.
Yeah. Definitely. It's that. And it's being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, because people think that empathy means sympathy, and it doesn't. Empathy really does mean understanding what it is like to stand in someone's place or to walk in their shoes. And then if, language is a great way to get into that, which is why probably a lot of actors will go to an accent coach to get into that, because that's a very sort of quick fast track, because all the secrets of what people are like are hidden in their languages. Their expressions, and it tells so much with each different part of the country that I went to, with all these different schools. There would always be these sort of idioms and special little phrases, and they talk about what that place is like, what's important to those people.
So I believe that's the 4 shapeages now, I believe. Is that correct? If I've got the
Yes, and then the last. Well, no, I think no, that's 3, isn't it?
Hang
So I
on.
think I've got one
Number
more,
4,
and I
please.
think that is is reading.
Sure.
Reading. My mum was an absolute voracious reader, and in fact, when she died, and I had to clear her house, most of it was like clearing the British Library because every single wall had bookshelves. She even had books all lined up on her dressing table. She, a little tiny bit of jewelry, but predominantly books spilling off every surface, and she genuinely read them all. She was a huge reader. I mean, she could quote, poetry and, just beautiful prose. So, she was an education, most definitely. So she passed that on to me.
Yeah.
From a very, very early age. I fell in love with reading, and I'm glad to say I have passed that to my son, because he is a voracious reader too. He's more like my mum. He can read a stack of books.
Wow.
I'm a slower reader, but it shaped me because I've read so much, and again, so I've traveled the world a lot. I've seen a lot of the world. I've met a lot of people, but it's my reading. Like, I was thinking about this because of you, Chris, because we both love Laurel and Hardy, and I wonder if you love P.G. Wodehouse as well.
I don't actually. I don't dislike them, but it's not something. It's not a rabbit hole. I have a
It's
very
not.
positive rabbit hole that I ever went down. And I
Well,
know
see,
that
I went
Fine
down
Laurie.
that rabbit hole at the same time that I found Laurel and Hardy. So I found
Yeah.
Laurel and Hardy from BBC Two Repeats when I was
Yes.
probably young teenager. And at the same time, I went to the school library and I
Yeah.
discovered a book of Bertie Wooster and Jeeves by P.G.
Yes.
Wodehouse, and the comedy in that.
I mean, I
And
remember
just,
Fry and Laurie doing it, and in fact,
yes.
my interest went to Monty Python round about the same time that I would think.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I love Monty Python. But my love of books has shaped me so much because it's given me access to everything. I love history. I love ancient history, but I love comedy, and I'll read P.G. Wodehouse again and again and again. And if life is a bit grim, I just go straight to P.G. Wodehouse because it's
Lovely.
it's beautiful humor, very, very
So
delicate comedy.
that's the beautiful first part of Shaking the Tree. 4 things that have shaped you. Now 3 things that inspire you, Rachel Shelmerdine.
Yeah, so let's pick up then with comedy, because you and I have that as a big part of our lives. So definitely comedy inspires me. I mean, all my friends have really great senses of humor, and they all love Laurel and Hardy and Morecambe and Wise, and just a lot of slapstick, but also a lot of very sort of more cerebral comics. So I mean, I love Stuart Lee. He's one of my favorite comedians. I love his wordplay. He's so clever. And my son and I banter all the time, and I hear him with his friends, and they just banter the whole time, and they're just laughing, and these, wisecracks and just very quick wit. And that just inspires me. I love comedy. I think that even in the darkest moments in life, in fact, quite often in the darkest moments, there is huge humor.
Yes. One of my favorite quotes about that is, "We have to laugh because laughter, as we know, is the first evidence of freedom." So in times of
I love that quote. What's that from?
Somebody called, she's first name is Rosie, but I was reading a really dark book about about the cartels during it said yes, the book about a really dark book about the cartel. It was a trilogy. And then in amongst this darkness was this beautiful golden thread that, as I say, to reincorporate it, we have to laugh because laughter, as we know, is the first evidence of freedom. When you can begin to laugh.
Absolutely. And that's so true. It's like
Rosie Castellanos, I think it's the attributing person. Anyway, it's
just, I must look into that, because that is definitely true. And one of the funniest things I've ever seen in public was actually going to see The Producers by Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
And I actually went with a Jewish friend who a lot of her family had died in camps, as had her husband's. Most of his family had been wiped out in camps like Belsen and Auschwitz. And we went to see The Producers, which, if people haven't seen it, Mel Brooks is real proper American Jewish humor, and big part of the producers is that there is a scene where there's a song which is Springtime for Hitler in Germany, and it is just, it's so ridiculous. It would seem to be in such poor taste, but it is the funniest thing you will ever see. And I think Mel Brooks always said, you know, it's the most powerful weapon you have is to laugh at tyrants, dictators, and people who do evil in the world. If you laugh at them and make them ridiculous, and you can never, ever, ever see Hitler as anything other than the way Mel Brooks portrays him. Once you've
comedy is
seen that,
catharsis beautifully. That's so well put.
and we laughed so much. My friend and I, we laughed so much. We laughed all of our makeup off, mascara gone, everything. We had nothing left. We cried with laughter. And we had to go to a really, really posh cocktail bar afterwards where we'd booked a table, and we just turned up shiny with, you know, crying with laughter. But yeah, that's my biggest inspiration. I watch Laurel and Hardy at least once a week. It's just.
No, that's lovely. Inspiration number 2 now, please.
Okay, number 2, and this goes really closely well with the work that I do, because I work in the design sector, and I chose to be in the design sector. I'd worked in the tech sector before that. My first business, I worked with tech startups, but I chose to work in the design sector because I can't design myself. I cannot draw, I cannot design. I don't have an eye for design at all, but I have a passion for design, good design, and I get very cross at bad design. So I suppose good design inspires me. And for me personally, good design is a mix of beauty as well as function. So I'm not a brutalist. I don't like minimalism taken to extreme. I do love beauty, so form and function together. And I'm hugely inspired by beauty. And when you see something that's well designed, and there is a sort of beauty, but there's also a playfulness for me in great design. And that really inspires me. So that's probably why I love Italy so much, because they are the masters of design, the absolute masters. And they're the masters of function, but there's always that element of beauty, but playfulness. The Italian design is very light and playful. So hugely inspirational.
Lovely. And now your third inspiration?
I think my third inspiration is just, it sounds naff, it's just people. It's people who have the courage to be themselves. So in this world, that is still such a radical thing. So for people who stand up for what they believe in, for people who speak their mind, who speak from the heart, I don't care if I agree with it or not, but I admire anyone who actually follows their own path and bucks society, what society tells them to do. So some of my big heroes. So I was actually just over the weekend listening to a documentary. I wasn't watching it, I was listening to it as I was doing stuff. And it's an old one, it's Melvin Bragg, and he was doing a documentary on John Wycliffe. And John Wycliffe was a medieval religious scholar at Oxford University, and his mission in life was to translate the Bible from Latin into English. And the reason being is he wanted the common man to be able to hear the words of God in his own language. He, like he said, he wanted the word of God to be accessible to the boy that plows the fields. And he was such a hero, because we can't imagine it now, but it was such a radical act that if you were caught with a copy of even a part of this Bible translated into English, you could be killed. It was, you know, it was punishable by execution. At the very least, you could be, you know, imprisoned or tortured. So it was a huge radical act to free this elite Bible written in Latin, which only the elites understood, and actually to translate it. And not only did he just translate it, he did write the most beautiful prose. The Wycliffe Bible is an inspiration. And a lot of our common phrases actually come from his Bible. But he knew he was going to be killed. So he was absolutely pursued by Henry VIII all over England, all over Europe. But he, even though he knew he would be tortured and killed, he still did it. He's such a hero. And he was. They eventually did catch up with him. And he was, he was terribly tortured. He was killed. Even after he was buried, the church later dug him up and set fire to his remains and reburied him in unconsecrated land. That's how
Crikey.
strongly they felt, he'd done such a radical act. But it was too late, because that Bible had gone out in pamphlet form. It had been sent, everywhere. And the most ordinary person could read a piece from the Bible that would inspire them, that would comfort them.
Yes.
And it would elevate them. And so that's my biggest inspiration, is people who dare to be different, who stand up for things. As I said, even things I don't agree with, or I personally don't understand or support, I always support anyone that has the courage to do that.
Your golden thread of a sense of justice and righteousness is there, even from your mum's observation of, when she intervened.
Always do the right thing. Yeah.
Always do the right thing.
Yes. And it's in my coaching, because I hope that a big part of my coaching is I inspire the courage to be yourself, just to be yourself, and to not have to refer to someone else and get permission of what that means, but to actually find it within yourself.
And no doubt you'll be familiar with the Oscar Wilde quote about authenticity, which is, be yourself because everyone else is taken.
Absolutely. I love that. All his quotes are good, but yeah, I love that.
And now this is where we're borrowing from the film Up. The two is, what are your squirrels, sometimes called your shiny objects syndrome?
Shiny things. Yeah, I love shiny things.
Never fail. What two squirrels never fail to grab your attention, Rachel Shelmerdine, irrespective of anything else that might be going on for you?
Yeah. So number one, this was really hard, because to try and sort of whittle it down, because I'm always attracted by new things, shiny things. That little magpie. Ooh, look at that. I might be looking at that and then suddenly, ooh. But food. I'm a real foodie. I love good food. I'm passionate about good food, and that that's been exacerbated by living in Italy, a number of times. So good food, and again, I've passed that on to my son. We shop local. We've got an amazing organic farm shop.
And where is local? We didn't ask where you're at.
So I'm in Dorset.
Dorset.
I'm in Dorset. I'm looking out. I'm not far from Shaftesbury, so I'm high up, big rolling hills.
Lovely.
Very, very, very beautiful, ancient woodland. So it's just a very beautiful place.
When we first met, I wondered whether that was going to be your clearing outside your window.
Yeah, and I did think about that, and I love it, and I go out and walk in it all the time. I'm looking at it out through my window now, but no, it still can't quite capture the wow of Venice. But yeah, food. So my son and I are big foodies. I love cooking. All my close friends are amazing cooks, and that again, that's been sort of a thread, because my mum was the most extraordinary cook. I mean, she used to make people cry with her cooking. Her pastry, people used to just say, "What have you done to this to make it so good?"
I've never heard that. It's such a great expression. My food's so good, you're going to cry. I love that.
I haven't inherited. I know I can't make pastry. I can't make cakes or anything like that. But I'm a good cook. I make really good food, and to me, it's love. To cook for someone you love with good food and good heart is, to me, it's just, yeah. So yeah, shiny things. Always looking for new food things. I'm always looking for new recipes and new flavors. My son and I, if we go to Italy, we quite often will go off the beaten track in search for strange, new, wonderful tastes.
Lovely.
And then the second shiny thing is, I'm an absolute addict to ancient history. Stone circles, a long barrow, just obsessed. Don't know why. I didn't used to be, but yeah, in the last sort of 15 years, I have become more and more obsessed with ancient history. So anything that's in ancient history, if I can get to it, if there's some new discovery, I'll be in the car and I'm going to look in the rain at some stone circle hidden in a forest somewhere.
And because of your love of Italy, I have to ask if you like the Robert Harris trilogy about Cicero, because that's just the most wonderful history novel. Which if you haven't read it, it's fantastic.
No, I haven't read it. No, yeah, and Cicero, he watch when Pompeii was happening? Didn't he write about and mark? They were in Naples and they were watching it happen. I think Cicero and his son. So yeah, but yeah, ancient history. but I'm in the land of stone circles. Dorset, I'm on the edge, near Somerset, Wiltshire.
Yes.
And so there are so many things, and lots of them are hidden. I'm grubbing about. I'll be going in the rain, in the mud, and I've read somewhere that there's an obelisk somewhere or a stone circle.
You're looking for clearings all the time within your squirrel.
I definitely am in clearings all the time. I mean, for my birthday treat this year, and it was rainy. My birthday's in March, so it's always rainy. I went to I read about this clearing of 9 circles. So I think they were called the 9 ladies. Well, I was scrambling through mud to get to them very early.
The 10th lady arrived in the 9 ladies circle. I love that.
Absolutely.
One now we're on to, which is a quirky or unusual fact about you, Rachel, that we couldn't possibly know about you until you tell us.
No, well, I think you can get the measure from just me talking. I do have quite a lot of those, to be honest. I've not lived a very normal life, so I've had quite a lot of quirky moments. But the quirkiest that most people don't know, in fact, not many of my friends know even, is that I used to read trees and castles, almost like tarot cards, drawn on beer mats in a Scottish pub in the middle of the red light district in Ostend when I was in my early 20s. And I became quite famous, so much so that when I went back for a visit, the owner, Maggie, had got bin bags full of beer mats with trees and castles. And it just was a weird thing. I'd been in England. I had been chatting to an IT manager who had just done a psychological profile for him to get promoted. And as part of that, he'd been told to draw a tree and a castle. And I said, why? And he said, oh, apparently you can tell everything about it. So I got him to draw one, and I could read it.
Wow.
And he was like, God, that's even better than the one I've just had. You've actually uncovered a lot of stuff. So I started to do it ad hoc. And then I moved to Ostend. I went and lived in Ostend, and I got a job in a very well-known Scottish pub, a rugby pub and football pub, owned by a Glaswegian alcoholic called George, his Cockney wife, Maggie. You couldn't make this stuff up, honestly. Right in the heart of the red light district of Ostend. All the girls in windows, quite a rough part of town, but very, very popular. Tiny pub, packed. And I used to read people's trees and castles that were drawn on beer mats. Wow. So I didn't take any money. I just used to do it. So the girls, as they used to come off their shift from the windows, would draw me a tree and a castle, and I would tell them their future or tell them stuff about themselves. And then tourists, rugby fans. It's very strange. It was just a strange time in my life.
If I understand correctly, the conceit is that you invite someone on a beer mat to just draw you a castle and
draw a tree and a castle.
Both, okay.
And even sometimes as a joke, because people say, oh, well, that's rubbish. They would draw a tree, they would just do a line, and they'd just do a box as a castle, but I'd still be able to read it.
I will proffer you with my castle and my tree.
I haven't done it for years, but
what an amazingly brilliantly idiosyncratic, quirky or unusual fact. I love that.
Very weird, very weird.
So, Rachel Shelmerdine, we have shaken your tree thus far.
Yeah.
Now we're staying in the clearing, which is the in Venice. Awesome.
Yes.
Can you just say the beautiful way you said it again? The Lido
di Venezia.
Lovely. And now we're going to talk about alchemy and gold. When you're at purpose and in flow, and obviously your company is Alchemy Inside, which is another great resonance that we had.
Yeah,
so when you're at purpose and in flow, what are you absolutely happiest doing in what it is you choose to do in the purpose that you bring to the world?
So number one, because I think about this a lot, of course, because that's what I'm trying to help people to be, because I'm very much an advocate of the ideal state for anybody is to be in flow. And it's really hard. It's not an easy thing to get into. I think creative people can tap into it more because they go into that sort of alpha state when they're creating. That means they're not sort of looking backwards or planning ahead. But for me, I'm a great planner. I'm a list writer. So it's hard for me to get into flow. But when I do get into flow, it's when I'm writing.
Yeah.
I do creative writing. I write little short stories and poems all the time. And I'm very, very much in flow in that.
Yes.
and I find it very easy to write. I love writing. I love playing around with words. So that's why I like comedy so much, because I like wordplay. I like messing around with words. And there's one thing I love about Irish people is they really mess around with the words. My best friend from Ireland used to carve up a word and rejig it and just make it so funny. So that's when I'm really in flow.
Lovely.
And also, and again, it does sound naff, but it really is true. It's when I'm helping someone.
Yeah.
Because I disappear. The Rachel, all the force of sort of personality and bossiness and all that stuff just disappears.
Yeah.
Which is why, as I said to you before, my focus is the other person. And it is such a privilege. I mean, you do this work as well. It is such a privilege to have someone trust you and allow you into their space, into their headspace, into their heart.
Yes.
And I find that is when I'm truly in flow. Time can just pass. I don't exist anymore. It's just into that other person's world. So I love it. Absolutely love it.
With alchemy inside, the invocation you're imparting is that you believe, as I researched on what you're up to, is the idea of the magical potential we all have within us.
Yes.
Is the alchemy inside.
Definitely.
That you want to very selflessly draw out by giving them a good listening to, really, in effect.
A good listening to. I mean, I'm not a passive coach. I was actually told earlier this year by a newly trained coach who'd done a coaching degree that I'm not a coach. I was like, oh, what have I been doing for the last 25 years? And she says, you're not meant to give opinions if you're a coach. Well, I kind of think that's rubbish. I do give opinions, but as I say, it's not about me imposing a formula. I hate all that stuff. To me, that's not coaching. I can't bear that. I'm very anti that new style of coaching. And the world and his wife now calls himself a coach because they kind of learnt that. And that to me is not coaching. I mean, it's about helping to draw out by giving support, giving space, listening, but also being a catalyst. By throwing in, using your instinct to throw in something, you respond to something they say, you see something within them, you kind of maybe show it to them, because most of the time people just have no idea how beautiful and amazing they are. And, that's the biggest pleasure, is when you can reflect that and you show that beauty to them. And for a moment they go, oh, that's me. And you go, yeah, that is you. And I see it and they don't. So that to me is coaching. But I do give opinions as well. I'm not a passive going, oh, and what do you think about that?
I love the reciprocity implicit linked to that Hamlet line of showing as 'twere the mirror up to nature. So what you've just described in terms of your own description of how you like to coach. I mean, I'm always all about what's your story is my main thing.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Story out. So that's really resonant for me in what you've just
described.
And
I do a coaching program called The Story of You, which I developed, gosh, it's nearly 10 years now, which is very much about helping someone to get in touch with the story of them. Because most of us, that's, myself included, we're shaped by what other people are telling us from the moment we're born, what we are and what they think our story is or should be. And so many people get lost. They never have a time where they can actually discover their own story. And I wanted to be able to develop a way of coaching. Very much, it is within it's the most sort of framework coaching that I do. It's allowing someone to actually genuinely connect with their own story and rewrite it as they want it.
Yes.
Instead of it being their parents' memories or, sort of enforced on them by friends, you're this, you're that.
It's rather being detethered to old narratives. There is a way of
yes.
attaching to your story, but also more future focused for you. Yes.
Absolutely. And I've done it with companies as well, where they lose their way, usually when they grow, when they go onto a big growth spurt and they lose that original reason why they set up, the founders sort of just lose touch. And so again, it's bringing them back to what is their story. Why are they doing what they're doing? But yeah, I love that. You and I resonate on that so much about, and owning your own story. It's your story.
And now I'm going to award you with a cake, Rachel Shelmerdine. I've got a bit of a comedy dog's toy that looks a bit like a carrot cake, and you get to put a cherry on the cake. First of all, do you like cake? I know you said you can't do pastry, but do you like cake, and what cake would you like, please?
Okay, I do like cake. I'm going to have a tiramisu. It's not quite cake, but it's as cake as it gets. I do
Yeah.
love it. Yeah. A proper authentic tiramisu.
And now you get to put a cherry on your tiramisu, if you'll pardon that particular expression. And this is stuff like now, what's a favorite inspirational quote that's always given you succor, first of all, and drawn you towards
That was the only one out of all this that was so easy. So my favorite quote of all time that has helped me through everything is, I can't think about that now. I'll think about that tomorrow.
I love the accent attached to that too. Where's that from?
That's Gone with the Wind, Scarlett O'Hara. So whenever she got into a tricky situation and she couldn't think how the hell she was going to get herself out of it, she would say, I can't think about that now. I'll think about that tomorrow. And it's just such a, and it does. I say it when I'm in a really tough situation and I have no idea immediately how I'm going to get out of it. Instead of stressing and working on it, I say that to myself with the accent, and it's basically just reminding you, kind of let things settle. Something
Settle.
will
Yeah.
come.
Yes.
Something will come. You know, let it come. Don't kind of get too stressed and react, because you make a bad decision when you react. Just wait.
And using a deliberate ploy of reincorporation, as it's called. I'd just like you to do
What
it
does
one
that
more
mean?
time with the accent.
I can't think about that now. I'll think about that tomorrow.
And now, with the gift of hindsight, what notes, help, or advice might you proffer to a younger version of Rachel? And you can choose when you go back to appear as a bit of an enigmatic holograph in your own life, wrapped your hands around your shoulders and just whisper in your own ear. Where are you and what are you whispering?
Yes, I would go back to my teens when I was at my last school, the 11th, the 11th school. And I was struggling at this stage. You know, I was a very anxious teenager. Like most teenagers, very anxious, but I had panic attacks. I started to have quite strong panic attacks. And I would go back to that time in my life and I would just say, stop trying to be like the crowd, because I was trying so hard to fit in. You know, this was the last school. It was a secondary school. It was in a small town where everyone, you know, they had history in that town and I didn't. And I think I'd reinvented myself so many times. I'd kind of, you know, I'd kind of probably run out of the ability to reinvent myself at that stage. And I was trying so desperately to be like everyone else. But in reality, at that stage, there was no way I could be like them. You know, I'd moved around, I was born abroad, I had strange family background. And I tried so hard to be just like all the people in my school, you know, just everyone that I knew. And I think that's probably what was the real trigger to me getting such huge panic attacks, because I was trying to do the impossible. So I would go back and tell myself, stop trying to be like, you know, everyone else. Just allow yourself to be yourself.
Again, be yourself, because everyone else is taken. Also, it's the birth of true autonomy when you've got to stop, when you started on the path of stopping to people please and just realize
Yes.
you could be autonomous.
Yeah, and it's a long path of people pleasing. Some people are just born being people pleasers. And I think, you know, I had a strange background. I had some trauma in there. And I think, you know, I like most people, I desperately wanted to be liked and accepted.
Yes.
And then that does tend to put you on a path of people pleasing. And in order to people please, you have to then sort of deny yourself the pleasure. You're giving the pleasure to other people and you're carving yourself up to make yourself acceptable. And you do cause some harm to yourself by doing that.
Yes. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given by somebody else?
Well, it's actually, again, there was lots of things, lots of really great business advice I got when I was first setting up. But actually, I'll go back to my mum, who is my big influence in my life. And it's very like the Scarlett O'Hara quote, because my mum, again, when I was in trouble, would always say, sleep on it. Don't do anything until you've slept on it. And she would always say, however you feel when you first open your eyes is always the truth. She would say, that's always the answer. However you feel about it. You know, if I'd be really angry about something, or I had a row with someone, or something wasn't working out with work, she would say, sleep on it. And how you feel about it when you wake up,
Yes.
that guides you. And she was always right. She was always right.
Yeah.
So definitely.
We're ramping up slowly now to talk about Shakespeare and legacy. But just before we get there, this is the moment called Pass the Golden Baton, please. So they don't like get up with Mr. Manring. So having experienced this from within, who might you like to pass the golden thread of the storytelling or the golden baton along to, who might just really like being given a damn good listening to in this way?
Oh, gosh. I think actually, yes, there's a creative director who is just amazing. And I've just started trying to record my own podcast, talking to some creative leaders. And she was my first person that I did this recorded interview with. And her name is Natalie Gibbs. And she
Natalie
is
Gibbs, as in Gibbs.
Gibbs, yeah. And she is a powerhouse creative. I mean, just true creative, a maker, real maker and a thinker, and real powerhouse personality as well. Just lovely, amazing person.
Thank you for that very generous golden baton pass. And now, inspired by Shakespeare, all the world's a stage and all the better ribbon players.
Definitely, that's so true. Yes.
From the 7 Ages of Man stroke woman's speech, how, when all is said and done, Rachel Shelmerdine, would you most like to be remembered?
Okay. How I would like to be remembered might be different for how I am remembered. I'd like to be remembered as a catalyst. Just that, a catalyst.
Yes.
I come in and bring energy. I've done some healing. I've trained as a healer and trained in energy work years and years ago. And I've been told that my energy is very, very powerful, but, kind of lifts people up. And I've been told my coaching does the same. But because I'm passionate about what I do, and I think some of that passion, that energy, but also I'm intensely serious about what I do. It is my life's work. I genuinely mean that. Again, that sounds maybe a bit naff, a bit cliche, but it is true. It's my life's work. I feel I'm being of service. It isn't just a job. It means something, really. So I think that's how I'd like to be remembered. I can see in some people who've come to me, I've had some people come to me in real trouble, and I have helped them shift and get onto a good path. And I've done that a number of times, and that, I've done it with friends as well, and just, people I've met. So I hope that's what goes on my tombstone.
She was a catalyst.
She was a catalyst.
This is a perfect moment now, because of the alchemy inside, to point people to Rachel Shelmerdine's Show Us Your QR Code. This is where we're going to point people. So if people are listening, not watching, if you're watching, you can scan the QR code and go straight to Alchemy Inside. But just give us the domain that we can, the path to follow to find out all about you.
Yeah, so it's alchemy-inside.com.
Lovely. And what can we find there?
So you'll find just sort of more information about my coaching philosophy and what coaching is, because a lot of people don't know what coaching is. What does it mean? So I've sort of explained what it is, how it can help you, and just my coaching philosophy. I mean, I think I've sort of distilled some of that into our conversation. I believe everybody has, and that's on my opening page. Everybody has that magical potential.
Yes.
It's just that they quite often can't see it, or they don't believe in it. And I think that's my job, is to show them and to help them to express that.
And resonant with what's going on here with Alchemy and Gold, it's helping them to discover or uncover their own gold.
Absolutely. Most definitely. Yeah.
And then the other QR code to show you is connect with Rachel Shelmerdine on LinkedIn, please. So what does it say on your LinkedIn page if the people are listening rather than watching?
Yeah, so that, again, it will just tell you about the work that I do and the work that I've done, who I've worked with. There are client quotes which again gives a sort of essence of the kind of effect that working with me has. I predominantly work with leaders and founders, but I do individual work as well. And this is on my LinkedIn, where I'm a specialist in people with anxiety and phobias as well. So I've worked with a lot of people who have phobias. And I've got some information about that as well.
Wonderful. And also, I've just loved the interpretation of castles and trees on beer mats as a sort of silky skill, quirky or unusual.
So funny. When I went back there, it must have been about, oh gosh, a year and a half later to go and visit and go and see Maggie and George, who owned this pub. Maggie just went, hang on a minute. And she went out back and she brought 2 full bin bags. She said, people come from all over. They've heard about this English girl that does trees and castles. I was like, well, I can't go through all of these.
You'd have been burnt at the Monty Python stake back in the day, I'm sure.
Oh, I know. Probably.
In a couple of moments, there's one final question, but just a quick couple of announcements from me. If you'd like a conversation about guesting in the show too, the website for the show is thegoodlisteningtoshow.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn too, flashing up my own QR codes. And then very, very excitingly, there's a particularly I'm very passionate about a newish series strand. It's been in the mountainside of the Good Listening to Show all along, but it's called Legacy Life Reflections, which is to record either your own story or the story of somebody really precious to you for posterity, lest we forget before it's too late, with no morbid intention, but it uses this unique storytelling structure, which has been likened to having a day spa for your brain and an oasis of kindness. Ooh, go me, to curate the story of that precious, special someone. So Rachel Shelmerdine, Alchemy Inside, wonderful guest as you have been, as this has been your moment in the sunshine in the Good Listening to Show. Stories of distinction, genius
in the Venezia sunshine.
Yes. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I think I'd just like to say, if you have hit a bump in your life, or you want to uncover that gold that Chris has talked about, then get in touch with me. Drop me a message through my website, get in touch with me through LinkedIn. I love what I do. I love the people that I work with. It's just wonderful hearing people's stories and then helping to reflect back the very best of that to them and help them get through sometimes very difficult stages, or just to go on to the next stage.
Wonderful. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Chris Grimes, but most importantly, this has been Rachel Shelmerdine. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for bearing with the 3 sort of comedy interweb gremlin glitches before we